Hello and welcome to week 2 of 2026. Since we've decided on uploading one video per week, even though it's kind of late, starting this now, it's still Sunday in the second week, 5 p.m. already, but since I was quite a bit occupied, I was not capable of starting earlier. Today we're just gonna try to create a baseline of what we later on want to create as a second brain template. So we're just gonna use HTML to create then this optical overview of what we want it to look like in Notion later on. Therefore, first of all, I'm gonna use VS Code, and the first thing we create is a file with doc type HTML. There we're gonna start the HTML area. We're gonna add a head. The head is just for some general information about the page. So first we're going to enter a title. In this case we're going to use this as a home. Later on we're going to connect all of these, so the naming becomes important but is not yet. We're just going to go and save this in a project Second Brain, and we're going to call this home.html. So it's easier and understandable what we want to connect with it. Next up, we're gonna go into the body. This is where all the creation of the visual page is going to be created. This is it currently, it's just a blank page. So for the beginning, we are gonna create an area. This area is supposed to contain the information we want to display. Therefore we use style. Here we're gonna enter a border that is 1 pixel wide in solid black. Always split them with semicolon. And first is going to be the height. We're just gonna set it to about, let's say, 20 pixels. Followed with the width, which is going to be occupying 99%. And when we look at it, it already looks like this. So we can see 20 pixels is way too little, so we're gonna set this to 80 pixels, and it looks like this now. This is basically where we can a place to frame what we want to place inside. So we're gonna use a margin top. This is to create a difference between the top part of the page and where our border comes in. In here we're gonna place our title of the second brain. So therefore we're gonna use H1, which is the largest possible font. Here we're gonna call this the home of second brain. And it would look like this. Furthermore, we want to have more areas, since the next thing we want in our second brain is a functionable link page where we can see all the references. We're gonna add this next, or this area next, which would end up also gaining a border, so it's visually represented. We're gonna use solid black again, since it's just a simple representation of what we want to look make it look like at the end in Notion. Here we're gonna use as a height 500 pixels. What the exact measurements will be, we can change always later on, with a width of about 20% of the page. And as well, we're gonna add a margin to the left, which will end up splitting it from the corner of the page again. So here this base. Since we also don't want it to be directly next to, since we don't want these blocks to be overlapping, we are also gonna add one to the top, which is going to be 20 pixels. And the next, here we're just gonna later on enter all the pages we want to reference. The next one is supposed to display what we really want to showcase in the home, in the overview. I'm gonna use the home as a dashboard, and therefore I'm also just simply gonna copy this. But if we look at it, it is height. We're gonna use 500 pixels as well. Let's set it to 250s. Width of about 60%. Margin to the left is going to be 5%. Why this is important, I'll explain in a moment. And also margin to the top of 10 pixels. This is now displayed not next to it as we want it to be, but under it. So therefore we're gonna have to enter another thing called float left, and as well in the bottom part. This allows us to place them next to each other. Since we want this to be doubled, so now we have both of these under each other. And in here we could now just simply add all the description that we want to add, which is gonna be a thing that we will add later on. This is just to show us what we later on want to represent in each area of our Notion template. So we're going to paste this in again. This is going to be the bottom part. The width is important that it can never add up to 100%. So the top maximum is 99%. And this one we actually want to be under everything, so we're gonna remove the float left and the margin to the left is also unnecessary in this case, since we want it to be centralized. So, margin top is just gonna use 500 pixels. We have a margin to the top 20, and this is 80, so just about 605. Since we want to add a difference, we're gonna end up with 625. So here is a 25 pixel difference. Why this is important? This is 80 pixels, 5. So we are also always gonna add up from the top to below. If we use the floating in between, because it's gonna overlap if it is in a float, and therefore we prevent this. Another option, as I've just realized, would have been to just simply leave it with this and add the float left again. since this is also just simply gonna manage it according to these ones. These three. This one is not included in float left, so therefore it's ignored. And here, well, later on gonna add our different descriptions. So this is more or less what a starting design of the page can look like. But the next thing we want to look at is the linking part. In HTML, this is done through an reference, and therefore we would have to enter it here with what we're just simply gonna call it. The first thing is going to be the inbox. So now we will have this here. That doesn't seem right. I'll have to check on this. Oh yeah, I realized we put it in the wrong area because we've put it in the top and not where it belongs, in the second part. Therefore, it would make sense to call these different areas different names, but that's nothing we included here. So we now have inbox, which is blue, as you can see, but not currently linked to something. So we're just gonna be sent here. And therefore we're gonna need to create a new file, which is where we're just simply gonna copy all of this and paste it in here. Then we're gonna save it, but this time not as home, but as inbox. Inbox.html. And now we can reference this in ahref, where we left it blank, inbox.html. And here, since we don't want to link the inbox in the inbox, we want to link this to the home, which according to the name that we've set is home.html. So if we now go ahead, this is going to be linked. But to showcase this better, we're gonna use our wonderful browser. Here we're gonna add home.html. And as you can see here, nothing is shown. Since we haven't saved this yet, that's the problem. The white dot in the top marks that this is not saved. And if we go back now and reload the page, you can see here, and if we click on inbox, we don't see a big difference, just the linking part changes, because both of our titles are home of second brain, but our inbox is not supposed to have the title home, it's an inbox, and home of second brain inbox. And we're gonna remove this off second brain part because it's unnecessary. We save this again and look at it. Reload inbox, just the inbox and the home. This way we're gonna use this to display our navigation, and later on are going to add everything. So the next to add would be here. After this, we are going to need a break. This is just to split, to put what comes next into the second with a new line, into a new line. And this one is going to be, since we're going after importance tasks, so this HTML will be called tasks.html. It currently doesn't exist, so we're just gonna go back here, copy it, new file, and paste it in here, save again, and this time as tasks.html. Save. Save. And now we not only have inbox here, we also have tasks. So if we can click on tasks, once again, forgot to change this. Just tasks, and here as well. Save and reload. So now we can already travel to the inbox and to the tasks. This is just so we can put in different descriptions and have an overview of what we want it to look like in the end. So now I'm just gonna add this at the navigation, since we want to have the main navigation in everything. We're gonna use this inbox.html. We don't need to link from the inbox to the inbox, so just from the tasks. Once again at the break. And then the inbox link, save. And now the same for our inbox with a reference to the tasks. If we save this again and go back, reload, inbox, we can now navigate to home and tasks. So therefore we don't always have to go through the home. Next thing we're gonna add is every other page we want to include, which will for now be a habits, something we every day need to check, and some rhythms that we want to create. Another thing are going to be projects. This is something we work on longer and maybe have multiple tasks to complete, which all will end up feeding into the projects tab of their specific category and will fill the progress bars on them. And next up is areas. Everything we have, we can split up into areas and just have a visual division between our finances, what we do for health, or some creative work. Another thing I want to add is a library. This is just for some memory space, more or less, since we can't remember every recipe, for example, or all of our ideas. We're gonna need a place to store them. Whilst the inbox is just for everything that clutters our mind and we just want to get rid of in a moment, from there on we're gonna sort out into the different areas of our system, and the library is for all notes that we want to take. And as well, since it's important to keep, is an archive. The archive is used to remember all tasks that were completed or abandoned in case we later on need to reference them again. Therefore, since we now created all the links, we can see them here if we reload. But currently they send us to file not found, because we once again haven't created all of these files. Since we already have inbox and tasks, the next thing is going to be habits. Here we're gonna add this again, save as habits.html, then new file, saved as projects. Another one saved as tasks. I think I mixed up the order. Tasks.html. Plain text, no. Okay, this didn't work, so I was too fast. Tasks.html. We already have this one. Not tasks then. Areas. And the final one as an archive. And if we now go back to our browser, we should be able to look into all of these projects. Currently still all displaying inbox because they are copied inbox, but that is easily going to be changed into habits as well. And this is just what we're going to do for every single one of them. Tasks. Now we're going to have to save all of these. Once they are saved, we can look into tasks, habits, projects, areas, library. Okay, I forgot this one. And as well here. For everyone who didn't know, the title is what is displayed in the upper part here, and H1 is the headline that we created. But now that everything is saved, we can click through everything. Yes. Next up, we're gonna update in the navigation part in every single one of those. So here everything is just once in there, and tasks is not linked. In inbox isn't linked. Library doesn't need to link the library, so we can remove it. And now if we go back with inbox and can navigate through everything. Inbox, tasks, habits. Habits is missing one, and it is the inbox area. So we go back to habits and just simply gonna and now that everything is saved, it should be complete. Now we have every link in there. Now we could add subpoints for everything that we want to include. For example, in habits, we could add another areas for daily, weekly, and monthly habits. But there we have to decide whether we want to include them in here, or we're gonna create, in this case now, above this, but not in the home, because the home doesn't need it, in another area. So once again, we're gonna use this one at the style reference to CSS, which stands for cascading style sheets, which just simply give the HTML an option to be modified and made visually more appealing. Here we're going to use the same, but in this case we have to reduce the height. We're going to set it at 50 for the beginning. Save. Look at it in habits. We have a problem here. Why is it next to this one and not below? Oh, yeah, I think I know why. That is because we can it always tries to place them next to each other. And since we want this one to be here from the order, from the visual order, save, reload, yes. So we can't just simply create it and say, well, it's going to be here a column and there a column. We will create this in Notion, but I currently don't know how to create it here. So we could increase this to the same height as the second column here, which would end up being about 250. This gives us more room to later on add more sub areas. For this we're going to use the same linking that we used before. Now I just have to make sure that I use the right one. This has width of 20%, so we will have to add it here. Another link, but this time we're not going to use it as a traditional navigation, we're going to use it as a sub navigation. So this will only be linked in habits. Weekly, yeah. And there, if we save, look again, we have the link of weekly. This is what we are going to do now for monthly and dailies as well. If we now go ahead and save, we have daily, weekly and monthly. Why are these now so closely spaced? Because they are not within their own paragraph. Since I like this display, we are gonna put them in those as well. Autofill is great, but in this case it disturbs me a bit that it always adds the /p at the end, since we want it to be placed at the end. And sometimes I'm too fast because I'm not used to it. If we save again, we can see now it's split in parts. This would allow us to be more precise if we want to add here on this one another link of a href oh come on, you're always so smart. I'm gonna create a set minus daily and HTML. If we save this, you can see here I forgot a break. Save. We can see here daily and then set. Display what we later on want to have as fast clicks, because we don't always have to pick up a template and then enter all of our data. We want to have a preset template, so we're just gonna click on set, and then we would have to fill in our data that we wanted to fill in. This allows us to create all of this in more of one click. We can reach it, so it's easier to navigate. But for this now to work, we would have again, so what we want, we would have to again to add these HTML files. I forgot the .html. Then we're gonna mark everything, copy it again, and add these new files. New file. Paste it, save it as daily habit. Save. Here now once again, daily habit doesn't need to have a reference to daily habit, but in this case I'm gonna leave it there for a moment, just so I can click on daily or not. Yes, I found the problem. It's not that I called it habit, it's habits. Save. I've made this mistake everywhere. Great. That's the problem with copy and pasting. But if we go again now, let's click on daily. It should work, but it doesn't. So we're gonna have to look into the files and see that archive monthly minus habit, weekly habit, daily minus habit.html, daily minus habit.html. Okay, why doesn't this function now? Just simply rewrite it. Save. Yes, now it works. Then save all three. Now we still have to correct this mistake. Save. Look at it here now. So here it's called now daily, weekly, and monthly. So this just simply, we don't have this set up in here, since we don't have any sub areas that we want to navigate to, except these ones. But if we want to have specific sub areas, we can also kind of like create an architecture in there. So to use the space and display what I want to say, you can use paragraph. And in this one, we're gonna use, we have home as a top part. On that, we have the habits, and below that we have the dailies, daily habits, minus weekly habits, minus monthly habits. This time not here, more here, the same here. Since we aren't currently in monthly, but instead we are in daily. So if we save all of them now, look at this again, you can go to daily, and we once again forgot the breaks. We can also place them in paragraph blocks so it's displayed properly. Save. So now load again. We are currently in dailies. Here we are in weeklies. Here we are in monthly. And therefore we can see that we are in sub areas. Since we want to display, since we have this now here, we can also display how it would look like in the home for reference. Here we also need the paragraph. Then we have the home. In this case now, we will have the inbox as well as the tasks, followed by the habits, yes, areas, and library as well as the archives. So now if we go back to the home, I forgot these ones again, save and reload. So now we can see we are in what subcategories we have, and therefore kind of show the navigation part that we want to display in here. For more modification, we can later on use Notion and create all these fancy customizations, but I'm not gonna create them in here. So since we just have the overview now we just need to set the explanation of what we want to represent in these boxes and how we want to change the layout. This is something I'm gonna do until next week, and then I'm gonna present it before we start really creating this in Notion. And therefore, this is how you create this basic template, and we will see next week how we're really gonna describe everything. If I'm gonna add something, I'll put it in there, but until then, I wish you a nice week.